2023 has been a hard year for the Walt Disney Company. Yes, they have had a somewhat success with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and sure, Bluey is doing okay, even though they don't own it on Disney+, but there have been many, many failures at the House of Mouse. One of the biggest failures, perhaps, is the destruction of an attraction, which we now know, according to polling, is literally the most popular ride at the Disney parks. The most popular. Let me say it again for the folks in the back. Disney is destroying their most popular ride. Let's talk about it. All right, folks, welcome back to another fantastic day here on the WDW Pro channel. Yes, we know it's a Monday, but you know what? Mondays can be okay. And we're here to help lift up your Monday. Joining me to help do so is Lorena Creole, back again. And we have VashSky, freshly squeezed is his show over on Orange Grove 55. Thank you for being back.
Glad to be here.
Thank you for having us.
All right, well, folks, as we get into this conversation, if you like stuff like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and when you click it, you stick it to the algorithms. It's the notification bell. All right, we have talked about Splash Mountain before. We have discussed what a silly thing this is that Disney is doing and how it may damage them over the long run significantly. I think the normies are beginning to catch on. But this takes us to a new level of dumb on the part of Disney. Here's what we have out of the Orlando Weekly by Belina Plaza. Study says Splash Mountain is still Disney World's most popular ride, despite being shut down. And of course, we know it's not just shut down, it's being destroyed. Magic Guide's new study names Walt Disney World as the most popular park. Well, that's interesting because it's not a park. But continuing on. Although it no longer exists, a new study says Splash Mountain is still Disney World's most popular ride. New research conducted by Disney travel planning experts, Magic Guides, reveals the most popular Disney rides at the theme park, with the ghost of Splash Mountain taking first place. They've destroyed the number one reason people had to go to Walt Disney World. Good Lord! Magic Guides compiled data for every ride from all four theme parks at Disney. That's right, folks. It's not just Magic Kingdom. It's all four of the parks. Magic Kingdom Park, Epcot, Disney's Animal Kingdom, and Disney's Hollywood Studios to determine the winners. 3 key factors were taken into account. Instagram hashtags, TripAdvisor ratings, and average monthly search volume. The latter I'll take. The fan favorite, Splash Mountain, received an average of 205,193 monthly searches, 323,813 Instagram hashtags, and a rating of 4.5 out of 5 on TripAdvisor. Not the sort of rating that you would expect on TripAdvisor, where there's a horrible, terrible-ist kind of ride. Lorena, are you shocked that Splash Mountain, despite its destruction and despite all of the negative marketing that has been put out against it, it's problematic, you know. Are you surprised that it still remains number one in the hearts of Disney park fans?
No, because as a kid, when I would go to Magic Kingdom, of course, we had to do the 3 mountains, Space Mountain, Big Thunder Mountain, but Splash Mountain, that was the thing to do between all the theming, between, you will get wet. I'm like, yeah, I count on it because it's like 100 degrees out here.
You're starting to sound like Stacy with the reference to the 3 mountains.
I know, right? It just stays in your head. But that ride, just how amazing the queue is on the outside, the queue on the inside, just how everything is themed, just like that country theme of these animals. This one, Bre'r Rabbit, he's always getting in trouble, and just like, yeah, I can't wait to see what trouble he gets into. Although I've been on this ride, I don't know how many times, and just how fun it is. Splash Mountain would usually have one of the longest wait times to get on, but people happily waited for it because the ride is just from beginning to end, from the minute you enter the queue until you leave that attraction. It's just so much fun. And
it needs to be said, Lorena, it needs to be said that, some people might come up with the idea that, oh, well, they're just changing some stuff, just some themes about it. It's still the same building. It's still the same track, probably still the same ride. And to that I say, they are taking out something that is unique to the Disney parks. This is a combination of authentic African folklore. Of course, Disney-fied as everything is. Snow White is authentic German folklore,
Right.
Disney-fied. But it's authentic African folklore combined with Southern Georgia bluegrass. And there's nothing else like that in the parks. And they're going to change that to a Louisiana motif. That's not the same thing, even if someone out of perhaps Washington State or Europe might think that they're the same. They're not. They're quite distinct. And I'm not sure that people are going to be so happy that Zippity Doo-Dah has been struck from the parks, no longer allowed to be played. I don't think that people are offended by Zippity Doo-Dah. What do you think? And then I want to go to Vash with perhaps one of the greatest questions of all time.
Well, Pro, you're right. With the removal of authentic Black American culture, it is a slap in the face. My grandmother told me these Burr Rabbit stories. I've said on your show repeatedly, I have a book full of Burr Rabbit stories that my grandmother bought me, and claiming that, this is just just a change. No one's going to really miss it. People will miss it. I will miss it. Generations of my family will miss it. And you're right. It's unlike anything in any other park, and it all fits in there perfectly in the frontier, the Frontierland theme. And it's going to be sorely missed. And people aren't going to be happy. I've seen people walk by and look at the construction like, what is this? Ride was perfect. I'm like, and now it's gone.
And just for a reminder, the Bre'r Rabbit character out of mythology, out of African mythology, brought over by those who were enslaved. Bre'r Rabbit represents a young Black man who has outsmarting his captors over and over. That's the bumbling Bre'r Fox and Bre'r Bear are the oppressors, and Bre'r Rabbit is the young man who overcomes. Well, Disney has smashed Bre'r Rabbit and kicked him out of Splash Mountain. Vash, are you ready for one of the greatest questions in the history of this channel, and a question that should have been the #1 question at the C-suite at Walt Disney Company?
Ooh, I think so.
All right, Vash, I think you're going to ace this question better than the leaders at Disney. Here's the best question I think I've ever asked. Should a theme park company destroy its most popular ride?
Ooh, I'm going to say no on that. That's going to be a negative. And this attraction is very, very popular. So much so that before the show, I was watching a little documentary TV special that they put on back in 2004 called Ultimate Walt Disney World. And out of all the attractions that they highlighted, which they could only highlight a few because, well, you only have so much time in TV, they highlighted Splash Mountain, and Tony Baxter, going up there and saying, hey, this is Zippity Doo-Dah was the anthem of the parks. Why not have an attraction present within these parks and resorts that we have? It's very, very interesting. Even like Denny's, when we went down to Anaheim recently, the Anaheim Denny's at I think Orangewood and Harbor had a little mural of all the icons of Anaheim, and you can see the Angels Stadium A. You can see Sleeping Beauty Castle, and you could also see, out of all the things in Anaheim, mind you, Splash Mountain was represented there prominently as well. We went to the closure of Splash Mountain that took place at Disneyland on May 30th, and the enthusiasm from that crowd, how they were willing to wait 3-hour, 4-hour lines to see this thing off. I believe the highest time I ever saw. Oh, go ahead.
And in poor condition. The Disney management had not taken care of the ride. It was it was not show quality.
So poor condition, mind you, that they weren't loading the very last seat in every single log because the mechanisms to actually get these logs into position before the various drops and so forth weren't working up to their standard. So they would. Let
me ask you this, Vash. So there's on the logs, they have a valve under the back seat of in the bottom, I guess what you would call the floorboard of the log, where people put their feet. There's a valve that if water goes into that valve, it will sink the logs. We've seen that happen before. Are you saying that they were concerned about that, or were they concerned about the lift hill mechanism not having the power necessary to raise the boats?
They were concerned about, I believe, the lift hill mechanism from the word I got from various cast members and from people who had been who had ridden the attraction.
So they had let this thing get so bad that they were not even putting people in the back row for fear that the weight of guests could not be handled by the attraction.
Correct. Only a maximum of five guests per log, rather than the maximum of 6. It was profound.
Yes. Well, the article that we were reading, and folks, go check it out if you want to see the statistics they provide. But it goes on to list out Tower of Terror, which of course is now unique to Walt Disney World. Lists it out as the second most popular attraction. Also talks about Space Mountain and some others. I found it interesting that Splash Mountain is significantly more popular, despite the fact it no longer exists outside of Tokyo, where it still is protected by the Japanese. But I find it interesting that the other rides are not even close. And I also find it interesting that Rise of the Resistance does not show up, that Smuggler's Run does not show up, that Cosmic Rewind does not show up. Those are fine attractions, and I think that their technology is kind of bewildering and magical, but I think that the actual magic of rides like Splash Mountain has been largely forgotten, that we now have rides that are impressive in every single way, but they don't leave you walking out with a smile and whistling a tune, and skipping your step. And I think that's what Splash Mountain did. I think people came off that ride happier than when they got on it, and it stuck with them. What do you guys think about the chances that they can come in with Tiana's Bayou Adventure, which is going to feature an all-new soundtrack? They're not going to use the original songs from the movie. It's going to feature an original storyline. It's not based on the movie. It's just featuring the characters. What do you two think in terms of just probability? And I know it's not 0. It's better than 0. What's the probability that they can capture whatever the magic is of Splash Mountain and translate it into Princess and the Frog and still make people happy with a completely new repertoire of animatronics, songs, everything?
I'm going to say, and I'm being optimistic, maybe 20%. I love the Princess and the Frog movie, the authentic Louisiana culture, which combined a bunch of different cultures together, all around the theme of food is what brings people from all walks of life together. The catchy soundtrack. I mean, I just watched it 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love these songs. You know, even Lewis, the alligator, he's playing the trumpet and everything. And I'm just like, these songs are so infectious and fun. And I can't imagine them doing Tiana's Bayou ride without those songs, without that attachment to the original property. I can't see it being very popular. I don't care how great the songs are. It's great that they got Terrence Blanchard to do some of the soundtrack, but without that, there isn't that emotional connection. And without that, that's one of the great feats that Splash Mountain pulled off with the Imagineering, to give you that emotional attachment. Even if you've never read the Bre'r Rabbit stories, it makes you want to read the Bre'r Rabbit stories and find out more. So I'd say 20% at best. It really is idiotic for them not to use the original music from the film.
Vash, let's piggyback for a minute. I want to set this up because there's a funny way to do this, and I just can't let it escape.
Please.
You answered that it was unwise, and this really did floor me. I couldn't believe your answer. It's unwise for a company to destroy their most popular attraction, the most popular reason for people to go to the company.
It's a hot take.
Now, let's say that you're going to replace it, Vash. You're going to replace it with something that is popular, perhaps not quite as popular, but you're going to replace it. Would you say, therefore, that it is doubly stupid to decide that you're going to radically alter the thing that you're replacing it with so that you strip it from all the parts that people loved, i.e. the music. Like,
Yes.
how many levels of stupid does this go? I feel like I'm in Dante's Inferno of Disney stupidity.
Which
So
level?
Yeah, yeah.
It's going all the way to the bottom at this point.
You have heard about these influencers that were recently invited to New Orleans in order to talk with the Imagineers.
Sure, the Imagineers live in New Orleans at this point. They don't actually
Right.
build the ride. They just do press releases and talks with the sycophants in New Orleans.
They have been in New Orleans for 2 years.
I know.
Years on this.
Looking
thing,
at crafts.
if you can believe it. I mean, and think about it. Somebody like Carmen Smith or any one of these big wigs at WDI, they probably earn what, $250,000 in terms of salary. Imagine.
Carmen Smith, who has never produced a single success in her history at Walt Disney Imagineering. She is the one getting to change Splash Mountain into something else, the most popular Disney ride there is. And as we've reported, they have frozen Tony Baxter, the original designer of the ride, completely out of the process.
Can't believe that.
Yes. I'll tell you this, folks. These are the last people you want replacing Splash Mountain or even contributing to Disney parks in general. And yet they're taking the most beloved attraction and changing it. And I will say, to your point, Pro, it looks like they have gotten some pushback on the music part of it. They have recently reassured the attendees for this event that they had in New Orleans that we're gonna feature snippets of the original music. Don't even worry about that. But you're
Don't worry, we'll put it in the queue. You'll love it.
Yeah, you're still talking about a sequel attraction that doesn't feature people, characters like Ray or Dr. Facilia that people loved. And whenever I inform people about that, because some people just don't know the details about this attraction, whenever I do inform them about that, they're always like, "Oh, what? Like, we're not? I'm sorry, we're not getting that." I mean, their looks change from maybe a cautious optimism to enthusiasm, to straight over to fear and loathing, because they're just not giving people the attraction that they expect or want.
We waited and waited and waited for information to come out about what it was they were going to do, and we got Magic Bayou Fog, which is a very unclever way of saying we're doing fog machines with lights behind them. Not inspiring confidence. One thing that does inspire confidence, though, Bash, if you could go and play, this is footage from Orange Grove 55. I believe you guys have captured this. Very kind of you to share it with us. This is behind the walls, taking a look at Splash Mountain. Now, is this from Walt Disney World or Disneyland?
This is from Walt Disney World. They are about a few months into their redo of this. This is actually taken by our good buddy Citrus George on the show, which found himself stuck in Orlando, of all places, from his Southwest flight from the West Coast. Very interesting. So he was like, "Hey, well, might as well go to Walt Disney World," and he was able to capture this footage from us. So this is just hot off the press. And
this is verified, by the way, by the article from WDWNT, that's Walt Disney News Today, or Walt Disney World News Today. If we go down here and take a look at this, we're scrolling through the queue line. They're moving logs, I suppose. But if we take a look at just the work that's being done, you see in this image, there's essentially nothing here. I mean, they did some work where they, I guess, painted some of the rocks a little bit. But this looks exactly the same. For all intents and purposes, this looks exactly the same. And when you look at what they've done, all they've really done, they haven't changed this to make it look like it's more from New Orleans, which they can't, by the way. New Orleans doesn't have mountains, of course.
Yeah, no red clay.
Rather than do anything that makes it look like that, they've just removed stuff. They've just taken the briar pit away. The briar patch is gone. They've taken the top of Splash Mountain off. And I guess we're getting a water cooler. Like, we're getting a water tower, and that's it. And it's just, this is more and more lackluster every second that we watch it happen. And I don't understand the level of incompetence involved.
You'll be encouraged by this, Pro.
Go ahead and play that, Vash,
or as much
chat.
as you can be, anyway. Dusty Sage from Mice Chat was actually one of the attendees of this event, and he kind of laid in.
You're talking about the one in New Orleans with the Imagineers, Carmen Smith, Charita Carter, etc.
Correct.
Okay.
And he laid into the Imagineers pretty good, from what I understand, talking about how, why are you going on about salt mines and co-ops and all this other garbage? You know, people want to hear really about bringing the story of Tiana to life here. They're doing the sequel next chapter story or whatever, which is fine, but you really should be focusing on that rather than all this other extra stuff. And
what did they have to say?
It's interesting because they said, well, we know that that expectations are rather low, because Dusty did include that, hey, people were kind of on board with this, at least the Pixie Dusters and so forth, that crowd. They were
Right,
kind
the
of on
heavy
board with this
dosage
at
pixie
first.
dusters who would do anything. You could sell them Dole Whips laced with mustard, and they would sit there and drink it gleefully.
Best ever.
Well, you know, I think everybody was taken by that first concept art that showed the boat, right, in the where the Briar Patch was and all that kind of stuff.
You mean the blue sky art that they threw out there to protect Disney Plus from boycotts, which had absolutely nothing to do with anything we're seeing now? Yeah, I remember that one.
Exactly, right. You hit it right there on the head there, bro. So people were encouraged by that, but then when they started hearing more about it, even the people who were very much looking forward to this attraction suddenly became, we're losing Splash Mountain for co-ops and salt mines? You know, they started to lose their enthusiasm. And the Imagineer kind of, you know, was taking this all in and said, well, we know the expectations are low for this attraction.
We know you don't believe in us for reasons we fully understand. We're totally on board with you not believing in us.
But don't worry, we have an advantage because we'll definitely be able to supersede those expectations. I mean, he acknowledged that they have been getting criticism and pushback, but he was confident they would be able to surmount those.
Like a Little League baseball player that soils himself before going to bat and then turns to the crowd and says, "Hey, I'll do better than you expect, though."
You're going from a 9, which Splash Mountain was, or a 10.
It's a 10. It's the most popular ride they have.
Okay, going from a 10 and expecting a 2 and getting a 5 is there's still a 5-point deficit.
This is terrible.
Right?
I had not heard this, Vash. That is amazing.
Oh, yes.
Lorena, what do you make of it?
First of all, with these Imagineers being in New Orleans for 2 years and couldn't figure out actual New Orleans history.
You think they'd ride? You think they'd be like designing some stuff?
You would think that they would take in the history, go into the Cabildo records, look at the records from New Orleans at that period of time, and say, hey, what are the additional stories that we could tell that will follow on logically with Tiana? But it seems like all they did was go for photo ops at Dookie Chase's restaurant, which is one of the most iconic restaurants in New Orleans, and just talk about art New Orleans, and that's it. Nothing really about the story. Nothing really that makes us say, "Hey, what's the next step that happened?" You know, with Tiana when we left. You know, they were putting together the new restaurant. What happened after that? You know, did Louis get to show up at the restaurant, even though he's an alligator? You know, what happened with all of that? And it just seems that there isn't the heart and there isn't that emotion that made people fall in love with the princess and the frog. And I have, even hearing what Vash is telling me now, I have even less confidence in this.
Now, wait a minute. So we found out from that same press conference in New Orleans that they're inventing new characters as well. You all remember this. We're getting new characters because even though we're not getting the characters we actually would like to see in this remake that we actually don't want anyway, but we're not getting those. No, we're getting new characters. And who can forget that Prince Naveen from that faraway land where clearly they probably don't speak English because it's a faraway land. Well, he has Ralphie. Ralphie, the little brother, will be there. And Ralphie plays the drums. Even though he's from a far-off land, he plays drums in the style of New Orleans because they have absolutely no idea what they're doing. Thank you, all ears, for giving us this photo of Ralphie from that presentation.
Yes.
They can't keep their story straight.
So
Ralphie is not from New Orleans, and he doesn't even exist. They made him up.
Well, don't worry, Pro. Don't worry. You see this drum set that they're actually that Ralphie's performing on?
I see
According
it.
to, well, this was in the one of the what is it, New Orleans museums, and this is a historic piece, and what they'll be doing is recreating this piece for the actual attraction. So you have that inborn authenticity right there.
But he's not even from New Orleans, according to their own story. And he can't be named Ralphie.
But those details, Pro, those details that
It's
we have
like-
to spend 2 years in New Orleans absorbing, they'll be right there in the attraction where nobody
It's
will
like
actually
going
care.
to the Mexico Pavilion and getting on a remake of the ride they have there, and George is one of the characters. Like George doesn't
Not
go in the
Jorge.
Mexico Pavilion. Exactly.
George, I mean, is Red Rider stamped on the drum set too, like Ralphie from A Christmas Story? I mean, are we gonna get that too?
All the
in this?
ridiculous things to come up with. This is what they've been doing. This is what they've been coming up with in their 2 years
What?
of going to
Right.
craft stores and the local places in New Orleans.
I keep bringing up Lewis because I love him. Lewis the alligator. Why couldn't they have had him playing the drums? I guess that
He's
would
playing-
be too hard to go back and look at, the original movie.
And you know what I'm getting out of this?
Yeah.
I'm getting getting It's a Small World vibes out of Ralphie.
Yes.
I'm gonna think that Ralphie's arms move like 2 inches, in
Yes.
very, harsh maneuvers.
Oh my gosh. He's going to the
Yes.
side. To the side.
Yes.
Oh.
We're gonna have some TPM vids, I think, of Ralphie. It won't take long before Ralphie's head is on backwards and his eyeballs are shaking.
If I mean, just the basic, sight test here. If I would have told you that you were getting a Prince and the Frog ride, and I would have showed you that concept art with Ralphie, I mean,
Wait a
people
minute,
would
you're
be
saying this
bewildered
is
and
the
confused.
third layer of stupid is what you're saying. You're saying that 1, you wouldn't replace your most popular ride. 2, you wouldn't take all the things you're using as your replacement out that made the replacement magical. And 3, you wouldn't lead your expose on why it's special with Ralphie, who doesn't even exist in the content you're bringing over and makes absolutely no sense in the first place.
Well, it's supposed to be like 10 years after the fact. So why is Ralphie still a kid? Because he was a kid in the Prince and the Frog. This is going to be 10 years after. Like, what? The timeline doesn't match up. And then you have these multiple variations of Tiana that are going to be represented in this land, and every attraction, and every single time you get a representation of Tiana, she's always in pants. She's never in her dress. And so you want to talk about authenticity with me? Find an African American woman in the 1920s or 1930s in pants in the South. Okay, Google that search, 'cause you're never gonna find it.
You're not going
Lorena,
to
how much money are they costing themselves when the little girls go into the souvenir shop on the way out? And rather than the Tiana dress being there, because they just saw it on the animatronic, it was so beautiful, and she was singing, and it was wonderful. No, they had Explorer in the Bayou Tiana with pants. How much money are we going to be making off of the little girls buying those pants?
Nothing. Little girls are not going to be buying pants. Little girls
Mommy,
want
I
to
want
buy
khaki
the
pants.
flashiest, most gorgeous princess dresses that you can get. And with Tiana's dress, with like especially the wedding dress, oh goodness
Yes.
gracious, you could print money with how many people wanted it. According to my grandmother, when she was alive, her mother and my grandmother grew up in like the 1930s. You were not wearing pants. I'm sorry. That was blasphemy. No proper woman would wear pants.
That's
Absolutely.
exactly right. From that time period, but they can't keep up with it. They are trying to rewrite history. They are trying to smash the stuff that people love. They don't understand what they're doing, and they're incompetent. I'm sorry. But as we've said, when you ask the most simple questions in the world, and anyone with any common sense would say, no. Like if you came to me and said, I'm going to force you to destroy Splash Mountain and replace it with Princess and the Frog, I'd say, okay, this is a terrible idea. However, I will make the best of it. We're going to get the best songs from the movie. We're going to have the drop be related with the villain. We're going to have all kinds of crazy lighting going into that lift hill. Like it's going to be voodoo we're going to have Ray. We're going to do Fireflies in the Caves, and we're going to have Ray singing about his Belle Evangeline and all that. We're going to do that. No, you get none of it from these people because they have no idea what they're doing. It is as if you gave them a multiple choice test on this and they selected the most incorrect answer every single time. So there we are. All right. Well, we're all enthused about this, as you can tell. Fantastic video. We're so excited for Tiana's Bayou Adventure. All right, guys, final thoughts, and also share with us where we can find you on this great, big, beautiful web out there. We'll start with Vash.
I'll leave you with this last little nugget. If you check the polling that has been conducted by various people on Twitter, MiceChat, all these other websites that talk about, hey, are you excited about Tiana, or would you just rather keep Splash Mountain the same? It's very, very telling. Overwhelmingly, people, no matter where you are on the internet, people will always select Splash Mountain to stay. But we're rushing towards. I don't know what we're rushing towards. The Oblivion? I'm not sure.
We're rushing towards Journey into Imagination 4.0, baby.
Exactly.
We're going to make it happen.
Again, this is
Vash,
something that...
where can people find you, though?
Absolutely, 100%. If you want to go ahead and find me, you can go do so right there at VashSky. Just go ahead and type it in, and it should pop up for, as Christine Waysons McCarthy herself would say, for all the
robust
discussion right there. And if you want to see me, it's going to be on the channel Orange Grove 55 on YouTube, where you have my show there, Freshly Squeezed, where we talk about just about everything related to the Disneyland Resort. So please go ahead and check that out.
Absolutely. We love the sound. We love Orange Grove 55. Look forward to having some more of the Orange Grove 55 personalities over here. Lorena, do you think, in your final thoughts here, do you think that Tiana's Bayou Adventure is a solid response from Disney to Epic Universe?
Not even close. Not even close.
It's all they've got, Lorena. Full-on giant theme park versus ride nobody wants.
All we're getting until 2024.
That's right.
I just feel like Bart Simpson should hold out a cake that says, "At least you tried," and give it to Bob Iger when it comes to this one with the, the more I think about it, the more just non-pleased.
You'll love Ralphie. Wait till the TPM vids on Ralphie. Wait till that kid spazzes out behind those drum sets. He's gonna look like Animal when that happens. When those hydraulics go out, we're getting Animal from Muppets Mayhem, baby.
Oh my God,
Lorena, where can we find you?
Oh, well, folks, you can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Twitch. And of course, you can mainly find me on YouTube doing various videos and live streams about pop culture, movies, anime, and of course, theme parks here in Orlando. So please do consider subscribing to me. And thanks so much for having me, bro.
And folks, if you like content like this and you're not subscribed to our wonderful guests, well, you're missing out on more content just like it. Also, why don't you go ahead and click that like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms. When you click it, we're talking about the notification bell. We are not here to be just negative about Disney, but they seem to only give us that opportunity. With Guardians of the Galaxy, we gave it an 8 out of 10, and it may actually make a break-even point. On Disney Plus, there were a few episodes of The Mandalorian that were all right. But come on, House of Mouse, give us something to talk about. You surely are not with Tiana's Bayou Adventure, and now you are going to be stuck with this atrocity, replacing Splash Mountain for the next 15, 20 years, for people to be quite unhappy. It's not the same as a movie that goes away quickly. So, we'll continue to report on Disney accurately, and once they get things turned around, if they ever do, we will be here singing their praises when they do well. That's what we do here, as we explain entertainment and keep you ahead of the culture curve, calling the balls and strikes. There just aren't many home runs coming out of Disney. Folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
Floral, it's time for you to walk the plank.
What? Why?
Because you haven't subscribed to WDW Pro yet. Nor bookmark thatparkplace.com on your web browser to get great articles from great contributors.
What?